everyone, and welcome to another video from Colour with Claire. Now first of all, if you're a regular watcher of my videos, you might notice that my voice is a bit weird, and that is because I'm just getting over a very bad bout of strep throat, and after being in bed all week I was absolutely desperate to get back on YouTube making videos for you all. It's my favourite thing to do, and yeah, I was desperate to come back. So I'm still not 100%, and apologies for the voice in advance, but we'll get through it as best we can. So another thing I want to mention before I begin is that I am not a professional COPIC marker artist or colourist. I'm still learning, I'm still very much a beginner, and these selection of 9 different skin tones are ones that I have tried to build myself. I've tried all different kinds of colour combos, and this is the best that I can come up with. Now obviously if you are a bit more proficient than I am, you might be able to do a much smoother job or a much better gradient or what have you, but this is just how I do certain different skin tones. And also I'm not very proficient on the darker skin tones yet. There are a couple included in this video, but most of them will be light to medium to olive, because the darker skin tones I'm not really great on at the moment. So when I have more practice with more skin tones, I build my COPIC collection a bit more, I'll come back on with another video, and maybe there'll be more kind of a spectrum of different skin colours than the ones I'm showing you today. But that being said, I think I've got a pretty nice selection of 9 different tones, so let's get going. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the first couple of ones in real time so that you can see the actual process, because the process is exactly the same no matter what face I'm doing. It's just the colours that change. So I'm going to do a couple in real time, and then the rest I'm going to do with a bit of music over the top or something, and the colours showing up on the screen. So just so you can get the hang of the actual routine of doing it. Now the Copic pens at the moment are obviously the most expensive alcohol markers you can buy because of their quality, and you know, they're used by very sort of adept artists the world over, and that means that they come with a price tag. We all know that Copics are very expensive, and the cheapest place that I can find Copics at the moment are at Cult Pens, and they're selling the Chows for £2.95 each and the Sketch for £5.65. So if you're looking for picking up singles for any of these skin tones that I'm going to show you today, because most of them only have 3 or 4 different colours each. If you're looking to pick up singles, then hop over to Cult Pens, because they have up to 50% off all of the Copic markers, inks and sets on there. So hop over to there, I'll put a link in the description, and you can build up your skin tones just as I've done. So the first one we're going to do is in the E family. And you're going to need E000, E00, not E02, E11, E13, and then for a bit of blush, you want to pop in an R32. So the colours needed for this first one are Pale Fruit Pink, Cotton Pearl, Barley Beige, Light Suntan and Peach. That's if you want to do a bit of rouge at the end. So I always start off with the lightest colour, which is the E000. We're using the brush end of the pen because it's lovely and soft, and it will create nice smooth gradients. And what I do is I look where the shadows are falling from the hair and the other things in the picture. So this particular picture I'm using at the moment is a cropped down version of an image by Jade Summer, and it's from her free Colour Pages pack, which I'll also be linking in the description. So I've cropped it down so we've just got the face. And what I do is I take my lightest colour and I go where all of the shadows would be. So on this particular image, she's got hair kind of curling down. So you want to go at the top of her head as well, at the top of the forehead, and then around the hair that's curling down, and in any little gaps or areas where you would see naturally a shadow form. So we kind of go down to a point to her chin, so thicker at the top of the cheek, and then down to a bit of a point near the chin. Now it doesn't matter if you don't do this exact, because we will be building and layering colour, so don't worry about that. So just just do those bits for now and we'll build it up. Now you also want to put in a bit of a nose line. Excuse me, I've got things falling on me. A bit of a nose line. So starting from the top of the eyebrow and the curve of the eye socket, you can come down both sides and just add in a little bit of a nose line, just to define the edges of the nose. You can also do a little bit on top of her top lip and a bit underneath her bottom lip like that. So that is basically plotting out where we're going to put our shadows. So now that we've done that with the lightest colour, we go in with the next colour, which is the E00 Cotton Pearl. And we go over exactly what we've just done. It's basically about going over and just building up layers. So we're going over the E000 in all of those different shadow places. Just blocking it in. Any little areas like that, just block it in, just to give that illusion of shadow. Now what you can do is just quickly go back in with the first colour, the E3000. You call it E000. 3 zeros, and then just go over the very edge of that last colour just to blend it out a little bit. So we're bringing out the colour a bit further, a bit more centred toward the nose, just to make sure that the edge of the colour is nice and blended, because we don't really want any harsh lines. Now, as I say, I'm not a professional Copic marker user or artist, so we'll see how it comes out. But the next colour we want to use is E11, which is the Barley Beige. And again, we're going straight to the edge of the line art and just following where we place those shadows initially. So you're not coming out as thick and as far as we did with the other two colours, but we're just putting in these shadow areas, getting deeper and darker with every colour that we put on. So you can see how that colour is much darker. And then we go back. So we're going forwards and we're going backwards. We're going back to the E00 and making sure that we go over the line, over the edge, and blend it back out. So that there should never be a dark kind of crisp edge. With skin, we want to make it look nice and smooth. So nice and smooth. And again, back to your first colour, the E000. And you can use this as your blender. So softening those edges all the time, keeping it nice and smooth. Now the next colour, the final colour for the skin, is the E13, the Light Suntan, and this is going to be your darkest shadow. So just making sure that you're not using a lot of this. We just want to keep it right to the very, very edge of the face. Because this is our deepest shadow and we don't want it to overbear everything else. So just at the top of the head there, the top of the forehead, down around this curl, I'll block that bit in, up and over the eyelid, and just carefully marking out that line of the nose. Now don't forget, if you do go over the eyebrow or anything, you can just come back in later and either use the colourless blender to get rid of the colour or just colour over it, depending on what colour you're doing your eyebrows. So again, we've got those dark shadows in there. That's our darkest colour used, and then we're going to cycle back. So it was the E11 Barley Beige, going over the edge of that light suntan so that it is not a harsh line. Blending it out, or blending it in towards the centre of the face. So you can see we've left highlight areas as well. Because a good skin tone will have a range of highlights and shadows. So when you're happy that you have blended out that darkest shadow colour, you can keep cycling back to the E00 until you end up on your lightest colour again. So you can see it's just a case of going backwards and forwards with the colours until it's smooth. And then back to the very beginning with the E000. You can now fill in any other areas to fully smooth out the colour. I'm not really happy with the centre of the nose, but the great thing about Copics and alcohol markers in general is that you can sort of cancel colours out with each other. So I'm using this very lightest shade as a bit of a blender and a bit of an eraser, if that makes sense. So if you think that your nose lines, for example, are too sharp or whatever, you can go over with your lightest colour, use it as an eraser, just as I've done in the centre of the nose there. And again, just do a layer all over to smooth it out. So that would be my first skin tone. Now optional is of course that blush shade, which I'm using the R32. And all you would do is creep in from the top of the cheek and just put a little bit in the corners of the cheek, sort of bleeding out toward the face. That's how I do it anyway. And again, you want to use your E000 just to blend those edges of the R32 in as well, so it doesn't look so harsh. And then you've got a nice bit of blush. So there we go, that's the first skin tone. Now, I know that it might look a little bit odd, and that's because the hair's not coloured and the eyes aren't coloured and the features aren't coloured. But once you've coloured in the eyes, the hair, everything else, this skin tone will look a lot less sort of stark and weird. It does definitely make a massive difference when you've coloured the rest of the image around the skin. So the next skin tone we're going to do is a little bit darker. For this one, we're going to use the E00 again, the Cotton Pearl. We're also going to use the E11, which we used before, which is the Barley Beige, and the E04, which is the Lipstick Natural, and that is to make the depth of shadow a little bit more deep, and also to give it a bit of a blushed look as well. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. And as I say, I'm not going to do this in real time on all 9 of them because we'd be here forever and I'll just be repeating myself. So exactly the same thing with your lightest colour, which is the E00. Picking out those shadows. But straight away, we've gone in with a slightly darker colour. Even though it's our lightest on this tone, it's darker than the one we started with on the previous tone. So we know we're going to get a darker skin tone at the end of it. So picking out the edge of the face, just outlining the jaw, and then those nose lines. A little bit there, a little bit there. So we've got all of our shadows picked out. Then the E11 Barley Beige to again go over and outline those shadows again. So you can see how we've got much darker, much quicker on this skin tone. Block that bit out, just come around here with that curl, this one as well, and then redefining those nose lines. And this bit here. Then we cycle back with our E00 and blend that line out. So when you're happy, you can move on to your E04, the Lipstick Natural. And come in with those very narrow shadows. So remember, when you get to your darkest colour, you want to keep your line very narrow. We're not doing a lot of the darkest colour at all. It's there just as an indication that there is shadow formed at the edge of the face and wherever else. So it's just a little bit of an indication. We're not doing a lot. So again, just put in your nose lines and around the eye, or under the eyebrow. Nice and thin underneath here and around the curl, top of the head, and around here. We'll block that bit in, a little bit there and a little bit there. Cycling back to the E11, and we're going to blend that. So we're going over the edge of that E11. You can see straight away the difference when you're blending. It really takes the harshness off the shadow. Now don't forget also that alcohol marker ink looks a lot different when it's dry than when it's wet. So if you think it looks a little bit of a disaster when it's wet, please let it dry before you scrap the whole project or try and add more colour or change it in any way, because it really does make a massive difference from wet to dry. So we're cycling right back to the start with our E00 cotton pearl and blending the whole thing. So you might want to leave some of the white of the page in those very inner highlights, just the triangles under the eyes and a bit of an area here at the top of the nose into the forehead. It's totally up to you. You can go back in really as many times as you like, just building colour until it's right for you. So there we go, we've got another slightly darker skin tone there. Now I think I might do one more in real time, and then the other 6 we'll do with some music over the top, so you haven't got to hear me repeat myself. The next one is darker again. It's more of an olive, sort of beigey skin tone. And we start off this time with E15, which is, I'll just find it out. E15 I've got as a chow, and this is the dark suntan. We then want the E13, which we used before, the light suntan, and then E11, which we have also used, the barley beige. So E11 is the lightest. We'll start again by picking out our shadows. So E11 was the second colour in our last skin tone, and now it's the first. So you see how we're getting darker and darker each time, because we're starting with a darker shade. So picking out the shadows, you know the drill by now. It's exactly the same routine on every face that I'm doing. Around the eyes, the nose, just defining that. A little bit on top of the lip, a little bit under the lip. So that will be our first layer. We then move on to the E13, which is the light suntan. Yep. Picking out those shadows again. As you can see, we're much darker, much quicker. So if you're sort of wondering how you pick out shadows, all you've got to really think about is anything that's falling onto the face or anything that's around the face. So we've got these two curls here at the front, these bits of hair falling onto the face, so we're going to have shadow. We've also got the hair around the face, which is going to create shadow at the very edge. So you just have to really think about what bits and pieces are on your particular image that are going to create shadow if this were a real life person. Don't worry too much about light sources and where the light's coming from. If you're looking at a face dead on, I usually leave the light source in the centre of the image. Obviously there's different kind of positions and poses, but we're just doing it frontal, face on for this video. So the next one, the darkest one, is the dark suntan. That's the E15. Oh, missed out a step. Nearly got me. We have to cycle back to our very lightest colour, don't we, to blend out the middle colour. So going back in with the E11, blending out. Slowly bring in more of the colour toward the centre of the face. When you're happy that it's nice and smooth, fairly smooth, then you can move on to your dark shadow colour, the dark suntan E15. Again, keeping this quite narrow. And really sticking and clinging to the line work. We don't want to go too thick. Okay, so once you're happy with where you've put your deep shadows, we come back to our E13 and blend out the line. When you're happy that that line has been blended, go back to the start with the E11 and blend that line in as well. just a matter really of going back and forth, blending each one into each other until you've got quite a smooth gradient. So as you can see, this is a bit of a darker skin tone. We've got progressively darker as we've gone along. And as I said, the next 6 skin tones that I've put together, I'm going to be doing maybe slightly sped up so that this video doesn't last forever, but the same exact routine that I've shown you these 3 times. Okay, so I'll see you at the end of the video. We'll come back and have a look at what we've completed. So there we have it. We've got 9 different skin tones ranging from olive to very pink to a very yellowish type of skin to very dark skin. Must say, obviously, again, I'm not a professional and these can probably be done a whole lot better to look much more realistic, but if you're just starting off with alcohol markers and you want to build up your COPIC skin tones, these are 9 really good combinations to start with, and of course you can mix and match those within each other as well. So I just think that this is a really nice starting point for beginners with COPICs. So if you have any questions about this, please let me know in the comments. Please give me a thumbs up if you feel this video deserves it. And yes, just please get in touch with me by the comments. I love to hear from everybody. I love to hear comments, suggestions, just how you doing, how your day's going. I love to hear from you. And as I said before, as soon as you start colouring in all of the other features and the hair around the skin, it's not going to look so odd and just like a bit of yellow sort of floating on the page. It will look a lot more centred and a lot better when they're all coloured in properly. So I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon on Colour with Claire.